Deca, the ADC wrecker. This building guide is going to teach you how to be the ultimate support for your team. You won't get any glory, you won't even get any thanks, but what you will get is the satisfaction of knowing that you helped guide your team to glory, unless of course you lose. Then it's always the support's fault somehow. So Deca relies on her kit a lot. She has a stasis bomb that stuns enemies, a slow bubble which slows and deals damage to enemies inside once it explodes, a containment fence which traps enemies inside an area for a duration, and rocket boots which allows her to jump into the air and provides a movement speed buff to nearby allies. To build this bad girl, you want to start with a health potion, mana potion and harvester key. You want the Centurion Prime card for that extra health bonus. We then want a Lord's Key with a lesser health and 2 basic manas, a Lord's Ward with advanced Chrono, mana and lesser health, a Pendulum of Lords with 3 advanced Chronos, a Staff of Adamant with 3 casts, a Tempered Plate with 3 greater guards, a Tuned Barrier with 3 greater barriers, a second Tempered Plate with 2 greater guards and 2 greater healths, a second Tuned Barrier with 2 greater barriers and 2 greater healths. As you probably noticed, we went for a max cooldown reduction and an armor heavy build. This is what a support should be building, not full damage. We have some mana in the build as well, although I don't find Deca that mana intensive if you use your abilities wisely. I put some cost into the deck because otherwise you'll fall behind if you don't manage to get last hits and farm up, especially if you're solo in a lane. We also have a second temper plate and a second tuned barrier, which gives our build flexibility depending on the enemy team composition. After about 268 armor, you'll experience diminishing returns, and it's cost ineffective to build too much more armor. So on my second plate or barrier, I usually just get 1 more armor card and double greater health. I will say that my team usually don't have a tank, and so Deca tends to soak up more of the damage. If you do have a tank on your team, you could maybe switch out the armor for more mana and damage. You might only need to go up to 200 armor rather than 268, and you can invest those points elsewhere. Okay, so you got the deck. How do you build and play Deca? You want to start with your health potion, mana potion and harvester key. The health and mana will allow you to stay in lane till you have around 6 card points, and the key will help your jungler out by getting harvesters. If you are laning with a carry, let him focus on getting last hits while you poke the enemy, trying to stop them from getting farmed. I unlock my stun first if I have a competent ganker, because there is a chance I could catch the enemy hero out of position and land a stun to pick up an early kill. When you back on 6 card points, you want to get wards. Wards are a necessity for any hero in my opinion, and they definitely save lives. So pick up the Lord's Ward and a Staff of Adamant, because the extra damage will help you get last hits while your carry is not in lane. Remember to ward up the jungle and keep an eye on nearby allies if they get into trouble. Here is Chimera fighting Gideon, and I go in to support him. I land my stun a bit too late, but had I landed it earlier I would have cancelled his ult. Fortunately we still take down Gideon. When Gideon ults, you have around 1.5 seconds to land the stun to cancel his ult. After that, your stun is pretty much useless on him. It's also important as Deca that you don't forget about the rest of Agora and Sid in your lane. Your job is to support your team, not just a single hero. And yes, you want to stay in lane and not lose farm, but when your team needs you or it's beneficial for you to help them, do so accordingly. When you next back, you can max out your Staff of Adamant. The thing here is that no one is going to do too much damage to you because it's still early game and you have your abilities to save you. You may die occasionally, but 99% of the time the extra damage will mean you don't fall behind. Now this build gives you a lot of flexibility when it comes to your deck. Flexibility in Paragon is a good thing. Being able to adapt to situations gives you the advantage, whereas the enemy team built for a general scenario, you have the build that counters many scenarios. So after this point you really have a variety of choice. You could go Tuned Barrier, Tempered Plate, sell your Harvester Key and put a lesser health onto your Lord's Wards if you feel like you need the early armor, or you could go with 1 armor type and a Lord's Key so you can help retain Harvesters on the map if you don't have a jungler. Or you could go Pendulum's Lord and Advanced Chrono for that early cooldown reduction. What I decided to do was to max out my Lord's Ward for some cooldown reduction, a tiny bit of health and mana, but as I said, it's completely situational. Again, what I will say is don't waste your abilities on minions, especially early game when you don't have the mana. You want to leave that to your lane partner unless you are solo in a lane, which I wouldn't advise. If you are solo in a lane, try to use your abilities only when necessary, like if you need to use your slow bubble to clear minions under your tower. Save your mana for when your team want to engage an enemy hero. Deca can definitely be the deciding factor for a team fight. There's really not much else to say with regards to the deck. I feel like I've given you some idea of how you should be building. Look at the enemy team. Are they ahead? Then maybe get armor. Do they not have any carries? Then maybe you can get that early cooldown reduction. Do they have casters? Get some health and maybe energy armor. Do you not have a jungler? Then maybe get early keys. There really is no direct route to the final build. It is all very situational and varied greatly from game to game, but that's what makes a great build in my opinion. If you do go double tempered plate, you cannot get Tune Barrier and vice versa, otherwise your build will not max out at 60. A 60 card point build looks something like this. We have our Staff of Adamant, Lord's Key, which is usually my last item I fully upgrade, my Lord's Ward, usually my second item I fully upgrade after my Staff of Adamant, a Tempered Plate, a Tuned Barrier, and my Pendulum of Lords. You can switch out a Tuned Barrier with a Tempered Plate if you want, maybe doing something like this. Again, as I mentioned previously, you could always add more damage or mana if you feel like you need it instead. Now I'm sure you're wondering what abilities you should be focusing on. I tend to unlock my slow or stun first. If I'm solo laning, my slow bubble is the obvious choice because of the AoE, but if I'm laning with a carry, then the choice is up to you. Like I said, the stun can allow you to pick up an early kill if you have a competent ganker. You definitely want to unlock rocket boots after you have your stun and slow. The movement speed buff may save you and your allies if you get ganked. Your containment fence is a must at level 5 and always upgrade this when possible at level 9 and 13. I would then focus on my stun and slow, as I think the movement speed buff from rocket boost is not as viable as the other two. Now I'm going to show you some gameplay and give my thoughts of what I did and what I could do better, so that you can learn from my mistakes or pick up from what I did right. Firstly, Deca's stun is so good if you're with your carry. We have no trouble deleting Murdoch. A stun followed up by my Murdoch's damage gave the enemy Murdoch no chance and was a pretty easy kill. These are the opportunities you want to look for throughout the game. We notice two enemies out of position in mid and we capitalize on them. I throw down my containment fence so that we guarantee the kills. You don't want to prolong the fight, allowing the rest of the enemy team to come in and help their allies. This could result in you losing the fight completely. Get in, kill them and get out as quickly as possible. In this case, only Howitzer came in, so we were able to pick him off as well. But had the rest of the enemy team come in, we might have been in real trouble because we didn't have any of our carries in the fight. Try to abuse your stun under tower. Kalari ults in to try and kill Twin Blast. She immediately takes tower aggro, so I stun her and the tower does most of the work for us. You don't have that much damage as a Deca, but the tower definitely does. Here is probably the most important piece of advice I can give you. Always use your potions to get yourself back to full mana as quickly as possible. I'm running around like a moron with full mana potions but half mana, and we engage the enemy team. Okay, it's better than having no mana, but I really should be at full mana. We managed to win the fight, but the extra mana could have made the fight even more one-sided. So make sure you're using your mana pots consistently to get yourself back up to full mana. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like. Let me know in the comment section below what you thought of this hero and any heroes you want me to cover in the near future. Until next time guys, peace.